and welcome to the Business Spotlight. I'm your host, Patrick Dewar. You're going to love today's show because it'll really hit home. Yeah, it'll hit home. You see, today my guest is Carl Kunhardt. He's one of the principals with Quest Capital Management, Inc. He's the one of the advisors and partners in that organization. I know you're going to enjoy what he has to say. Carl, thanks so much for being on the show.
Patrick, thank you for having me today.
I really want to get into your story. I mean, you guys have done so much, and I know your background and where you've come from and what you're doing all blend so well. So tell me your story. How did you get started in this?
Okay, well, like a lot of people, I'm in my second career after 26 years in the Marine Corps. It was time to move on to something else, and I found out that I wasn't prepared for retirement, either financially or emotionally. Luckily, I had retained the services of a financial planner at the time, primarily for education planning with our first child, and it seemed like the perfect thing to go talk to a planner about what do you do now that you have supposedly grown up.
This is after how many years?
26 years. I was a slow learner. It was just a lot of fun playing with the toys. But anyway, I went and visited with Tom, and through his recommendation, I got a position with American Express Financial Advisors as a personal financial planner. What I found is that I loved the work. I had an affinity to the analytical work, and more importantly to me, the interpersonal relations that you built with the families, which was not something that I really got involved with a lot in the Marine Corps, was something that really called out to me and I really enjoyed. The one thing I did find is that the entrepreneurial nature of the job was a little bit of a challenge, as I've never had that experience even after all of that time. So I needed just a little different model that, despite all the support and the great training that I got at American Express. And it was right about that time that I met a gentleman named Woody Young. Woody was the founding principal of Quest. And if you know Woody, he's quite a character. He has a passion for everything Marine Corps and everything financial planning. He served in Vietnam. He was a Marine, and he was one of the pioneering financial planners here in Dallas. And throughout most of 1996, he kind of became a mentor to me, and at the end of the year, I left American Express and went to work with Quest. Worked with Quest since that point. I mean, it became my home.
Right.
Became a shareholder in 2002. One of the things I found is that we set very high standards. So I needed to complete the Certified Financial Planner because that's a requirement of all of the advisors at Quest. Education had always been a big thing for me, primarily because for those first 26 years my life depended on my education and staying on top of it. And now my family's future, not my direct families, but the families I was responsible for, their futures were responsible on what I knew and how well I was able to implement that. And that just led to one initial after the other, the Certified Investment Management Analyst, the Accredited Estate Planner. I'm working on the Enrolled Agent currently, and just found that it fed my passion for education. 2010 was great changes for Quest. We're really excited. The other founding principal, Glenda Kemple, had retired back in 2002 from Quest, and Woody decided that he was going to retire at the end of 2010. So obviously, so very few businesses tend to transcend their founding principles, especially both of them, and we wanted to make sure that we were one of those few. It's been a great run. 2011 was better than any of the other previous years in Quest history. 2012 has been that much better than 2011, so we've been very blessed. We were able to transition to the second generation of owners, which was something that did not go unnoticed by our families, who feel very comfortable by the fact that there is a transition plan in place. They know what the transition plan is, and they've seen it put in practice now twice, and it works. So we've been very excited about the last 25 years and looking forward to the next 25.
So it's a big part of your, what you guys do is the whole transition from whether it be a family or even with companies in carrying them through that process. Is that?
It really is. Financial planning is really helping navigate through all the changes that life throws at you. It's one of the reasons I had such an affinity. Yeah, when I was in the service, I was primarily in operations. So it was always finding a solution for a problem that was at hand in an operation that you were currently involved. And what I found through my first couple of years at American Express and then through all the subsequent years is the financial planning was very much the same thing. It was, first of all, defining what it is you're trying to achieve, where you are, and then finding a way to get from where you are to where you wanted to go.
And I know that in that industry, having some history with it, I actually was in it for about 10 years, and I know that it's really critical that you lead people and guide people to the best of anybody's ability through the waters that are out there. And as we go into the next few segments, folks, you're going to learn a lot about not just, I want to say, financial planning. It's really about the keys to that Quest uses to help. This is the Business Spotlight. I'm Pat Dewar. We'll be right back. And welcome back to the Business Spotlight. I'm Patrick Dewar. My guest today, Carl Kunhardt. He's one of the principals of, our partners, I should say, of Quest Capital Management, Inc. And I want to get right into really what you're doing for your clients.
Our clients, Pat, are first and foremost successful people. They're busy people. They're good at what they do, and they like making smart choices in every endeavor that they go to, and that's why they come to us. They want to make better choices with their money, better choices with the things that require finances, and essentially our mission is to help them navigate through life's challenges. We do this through a process we call wealth management. Now, it's important to understand what wealth management is and what wealth management isn't. And wealth management is trying to identify that picture on the top of the box. And by that I mean when you're building a puzzle, oftentimes when you ask people what's the most important piece, and they'll always tell you one of the ends or a corner, it's really the picture on top of the box is understanding what that is. And that's what wealth management is helping define what the goals are, helping define what the objectives are, which you often don't know yourself and never really thought through. It's helping you accumulate and preserve your wealth. It's cash management, it's tax planning, it's estate planning, investments planning, absolutely. But it's also finding ways to make a difference afterwards. And we do this through a process we call the Plan for Life process. In the Plan for Life process, through a series of meetings, we help a client understand and define what their goals and objectives, and obviously we gather all the data and we prepare a financial analysis, essentially painting the picture of where they are today. Once we know where they are today and we've already defined where they want to be through their goals and objectives, it's a matter of then building the roadmap, if you will, to get to that quest from where you are to where you are right now. And hopefully we'll create a problem at that point, that when we get to the point where you are right now, the question that we'll ask is, now what?
Right.
How do you want to make a difference? And that came about in that we previously thought that our role was to get people to financial independence. What we have found out, oddly enough, by being told by our clients when we thought we were done, is that no, that now's when we need you more than ever. And it's that time that, okay, we've reached that point of, we don't like to use the word retirement, but financial independence, and now they're going to have to live off their assets. And how are they going to do that efficiently? We don't know when the end point is because none of us know when the good Lord's going to call us. And we have to be good shepherds to the wealth that He's entrusted us with to get us all the way through what we jokingly call the back nine. One of the things that we do within that process is provide a lot of education. And frankly, one of the things that society does not do well is prepare us to manage our finances. So we view our role as advisors as providing the education, because the only way that you're going to make good choices about your money is if you have that knowledge. It's not because you're not intelligent, it's simply you don't have the knowledge base to be able to make those decisions. So we see as our role as advisors is to provide you with that knowledge so that you can make sound decisions. And then you have to be accountable. You have to do what you're going to say, or you have to say what you're going to do, and then you have to do what you said you were going to do. You have to be transparent about it. You have to be accountable. You got to deliver, and you got to deliver proactively, because as a professional, the client is looking at you to keep that financial plan moving forward, because financial plan is a journey. It's not a destination.
Do you work with families, or do you work with companies, or both?
That's a great question. We work primarily with families. We had an opportunity several years ago to work with a couple of institutional clients, some foundations, and that would have changed the entire character of the firm. And Woody, in hindsight, very well thought out, said, no, we're going to continue to do what our core competencies are and what we're good at. So we have stayed with families. We do work with companies in that many of our families are small business owners.
Yeah, I would imagine.
And when they have become so pleased with their services, our services in their personal area, we're often called to help them in succession planning, in preparing their business for the sale, in putting appropriate benefits for the employees, retirement plans. We don't actively go after the businesses. We prefer to work with families. That's kind of where our passion is.
I know as we go into the next segment, I hope that we'll talk a little bit on as much as is kind of allowed in this industry of the new. There's a lot of new estate kind of issues that this generation and the people that you're working with are going to be facing.
There's a lot of changes coming up here in just about 5 or 6 weeks, and unfortunately, there aren't a lot of good answers.
I understand. You know, it is what it is. But this is the Business Spotlight, and my guest, Carl Kunhardt, Quest Capital Management, Inc. He's one of the partners in the company, and I know that we're getting some real keys, some real good ideas of things that you need to be thinking about. Especially the boomer group, which would be people that are my age or above predominantly, and they need to be concentrating their questions for the future on what to do now and what to do in the future. This is Pat Dewar, the Business Spotlight. We've got more to come. We'll be right back. And welcome back to the Business Spotlight. It's your host, Patrick Dewar. Today, my guest, Carl Kunhardt, CFP, and has several other letters that go along with that are all with as a wealth manager. A wealth advisor, I should say. He is a partner in Quest Capital Management, Inc. And Carl, I want to get into your ideal client. Who do you want to work with?
That's a great question, Pat. And often when that question is asked, it revolves around money. People want to know, what are your minimums? What do you charge? How much do I have to make? And when we think of an ideal client, that's not really what comes to mind for us. Obviously, the firm has minimums and There has to be some wealth there if there's going to be any sort of management. But to us, the ideal client is one that's serious about making good decisions.
Right.
What we find is they lack the time, they lack the knowledge, or they lack the desire to be able to manage their finances the way they want to manage their finances. Rarely do clients want to just take a complete hands-off approach, but they want to, again, make smart choices, and they don't have the time, knowledge, or desire to do so. What's a typical client? A busy professional, doctor, dentist, that is simply very, very good at what he does, and he got that way by focusing almost exclusively on what he does. He may have a negative net worth. I think we recognize that a new doctor just finishing his residency probably owes more in cost for education than he probably owns. But anyone would admit that over a reasonable amount of time, they're going to be a very, very good client.
Exactly.
Busy professional. Those that are financially independent. As I alluded to before, we initially thought that our job was to get clients to that point of retirement, to that point of financially independent, where they're working because they want to, not because they have to, and that we had done our job. And what we found over the years, and that's either a benefit or a curse of longevity, is that you find these lessons, is that no, the second half where you're having to live off your assets, not off your labors, is more intimidating to clients, and they feel they need more help during that phase. So that when Quest started, we had no retired families, no families in financial independence. 25 years later, about 40% of our families are in financial independence, some of them many, many years into financial independence. Small business owners transitioning, as I mentioned before. Typically, a small business owner's business is their largest asset outside of their home, and their financial independence is often predicated on that monetization of the business, getting the value that they've built over all those years out of the business. So often we'll be brought in by either their CPA or their CFO to help them plan, and it may be something as simple as getting a realistic number of what they need for financial independence, because as you can imagine, if you go into the negotiations for a business knowing how much you need, then you have a leg up. You have some leverage there in negotiations for the sale of your business. It could be a corporate executive. A lot of times it's something very narrowly based, like they've been paid in options or restricted stock for many, many years, and now they have to have a strategy to begin to extricate themselves out of that, those options and restricted stocks. And other times it's just the same issue as with a busy professional, because that's what they are. And corporate environment, corporate America takes up so much time of these people's lives that they need the help to manage their affairs efficiently.
Well, one of the things I keep hearing over and over again, Carl, is transition. Mm-hmm. That you really help people that are in that part of their life where a transition is going on, whether it's wealth transfer, which we alluded to before, and I'd love to get into that a little bit, and then but even beyond that, it's the divorce, it's the it's a change of some sort. Would you agree with that?
Exactly right. I mean, when you think about it, anytime you're in transition, that is a part of life where there are the most questions,
right.
Where there's the most uncertainty, whether it's change of careers, whether it's a divorce or the death of a loved one, whether it's the sale of a business. There is uncertainty about how do I get through this, what comes next. And that's what planning helps you do. I mean, oftentimes you'll see people think the CPAs and CFPs are one and the same, where they do the same thing. No, they're both complementary, because one will focus on the numbers and how to maximize those numbers, while the other one is focusing on the journey. How do we position these things so that we can meet those goals and objectives, assuming you know the goals and objectives, which quite often that's the problem. You have never recited, you have never documented, you have never painted that picture of what it is you're trying to achieve. So yes, very much so. Another segment that we work a lot with is we call them suddenly single ladies.
Right.
ladies have been married for many, many years, and they've been divorced. Again, one of those transitions, a lot of uncertainty, and they're looking for some help, some benchmark as to, what should I be expecting? How can I best manage this process?
Awesome. Well, one last thing I wanted to ask you as we're about to go to the next break is CFP, what are the other ones?
Certified Investment Management Analyst, CIMA,
right,
and Accredited Estate Planner.
So more than a little help there. This is a Business Spotlight. I'm Pat Dewar. Carl Kunhardt with me. We'll be right back. And welcome back to the Business Spotlight. This is Patrick Dewar. My guest today is Carl Kunhardt, Quest Capital Management, Inc. And with that, I want to go right into how should someone connect to you? How do you want people to contact you? And then what's the experience when they do?
Okay. Contacting is very easy. You can call. The best number to call is the number that you've shown on the screen. That'll get you straight to the front desk, the receptionist. We have a team member whose sole responsibility is that initial potential client family and getting them started in the process. It's very transparent. It's very easy. There's a very short questionnaire that you'll receive that we ask that you return before the initial meeting, which is a little bit different from most others. And we just feel if you're going to invest an hour to an hour and a half of your time talking to us, then we should make sure that you bring value to that visit. So that's what the questionnaire. It's very top level. People are surprised. It has very little to do with numbers and a lot to do with what's important to you. What's your mission statement? That is one of the questions in the questionnaire. What are the things that you're uncertain? Going back to your previous questions, what are the points of concern? Because we want to make sure that we address those in the initial consultation. Should you decide to move forward in the process after that introductory meeting, the next meeting that we'll schedule is a discovery or data gathering meeting, and that's really where the collection of data happens. It is a dual meeting in that we're not going to go page by page through all of your statements and all of your tax returns. That's for us to do in the background over the coming weeks. But we'll collect all of that data. We'll organize all of that data. We make sure we understand what it is that you're giving us, and we're going to spend the balance of that meeting, which is a fairly long meeting that usually tends to run 2 to 3 hours, on understanding you, building on what we talked about the first meeting, a lot of goal setting, a lot of painting that picture in the box that I talked about previously. The next meeting in the process, if you were to take it right out of a textbook for financial planning, would be the plan presentation. But as I said, in the background, we're going to be reading through your estate documents, we're going to be reading through your tax returns, and not just the 1040, but all of the underlying schedules. That takes time. We've got to organize it, we've got to scan it, we've got to get it into the software. And our philosophy is, at those very early stages, going 2 to 3 weeks without having spoken to you is probably not the best idea, especially if you're in one of these transitions and you've come to us. And as I mentioned before, we believe that one of our roles as advisors is to educate.
Right.
So we interject a meeting in between there while we're going through all of these things in the background. That's a purely educational meeting.
Right.
We will go and we start with fundamentals of investments because it's the one domino that touches on everything. So we will cover basics like what's the difference between savings and investments, what's the difference between these stocks and bonds, what is an asset allocation, why is those important, why is an investment policy statement important. I mean, really get down to the fundamentals that really society should have taught us and didn't.
Yeah.
We get to the plan presentation. It's really a financial analysis. It covers everything. It is comprehensive. from cash management and tax planning all the way through estate planning and charitable gifting if you're so inclined, and everything in between. And we're going to put all of our observations, the things that we saw in the reports, in writing, which is a little bit different from others, and we're going to write our recommendations in writing. Now, to a large extent, that's the same process that most financial planners will take you through. A change in our process is that at that point forward, we're going to be proactive with you over the course of the year in implementing those things, because as you well know, I saw a previous segment where you were talking to your guest, plans are great, but if you don't implement it, they're a waste of time and money.
Absolutely.
So,
I mean, it's a great idea, but so what?
So what? If you don't do anything with it, you're not going to get anywhere with it. So we spend the balance of the year. That's really where we earn our money. We're fee advisors. We work on a retainer basis. We find that our clients like that because they know that if I give them a call, I'm doing because we need to do something to make the plan go forward, not because I'm trying to generate billable hours.
Right.
And because it is a fixed fee, they know that I'm going to be working as efficiently as possible, and my team's going to be working as efficiently as possible, because any excess costs really are coming out of our pocket, not the clients. So they know what their costs are up front, and it's set. As we approach the anniversary date, we're going to update the analysis to all material changes that have occurred over that year, following an action plan, which is one of the ways that we keep the plan transparent and maintain accountability.
That's right.
And we will produce an annual review. It's not a complete rewrite of a financial plan. Could be, because we update everything. There's just not a necessity to put out another 80-page book. But we're going to focus on the things that have gone well over the course of the year, things that we've made progress on, things that have not gotten done because they need to carry over. We'll need to reprioritize them given what we're going to do over the second year. And then we will build an action plan for the following year. And it's at that point that our clients make a decision on whether they want to continue to work with us in subsequent years or not. And apparently we're doing something right, because our retention rate hovers around 96–97% over 25 years.
That's a phenomenal number, by the way.
Yeah.
So it all starts with a phone call.
It all starts with a phone call, 214-691-6090.
That's right. Make a phone call. If you think you're somebody that you'd like to visit with, Quest Capital Management with Carl Kunhardt, you should. I just encourage you to make a phone call. And this is the Business Spotlight. I'm Pat Dewar. Thanks again. This show is about having business owners tell their story to the community and at large. We'll talk to you all next time. Thanks again, Pat Dewar.